Look, the biggest podcast where you can learn them lessons. Line for line where you can learn from different sections. Made it out the mud, come tell your story, blessings. Never know who listening, never know who stressing. Devon gave you a voice, come speak your honest truth. Line for line, go bar for bar, it's up to you. Wanna talk sports, gov, and politics? Wanna talk about where you from and your accomplishments? The Line for Line is really where you need to be. A platform that's really made for folks like you and me. You can find it all no matter what you seek. Whether you calling or you listening, tune in every week.
All right. We're back on another episode of Line for Line podcast, here to talk about your Chicago Bears. I'm your host with the most, Devon Booker. We have a very special guest in the building.
Lester Wiltfong, Editor-in-Chief, Windy City Gridiron. You can find our podcast on the Windy City Gridiron podcast channel. And we got some video stuff going over on Second City Gridiron.
And we are here to talk about the Chicago Bears because the Chicago Bears have a lot going on. Where would you like to start, Lester? There's just so much to debunk today. Where would you like to start?
I mean, it's season preview. I mean, the game starts September 11. So, it's whatever you want to get into. Offense, defense, special teams. It's all out there for you.
Let's get on the 49ers, who will be a new-look 49ers because obviously they won't have Jimmy G under center anymore. They'll have Mr. Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Trey Lance. And will Deebo Samuel be back by then?
Yeah, he should be fine. I think he's battling a little injury. But, yeah, from what I understand, he'll be back. And it's an electric player, man. He does a little bit of everything for those guys.
Now, what are you expecting out of this game, my guy?
I mean, we're being honest. I mean, this team's coming off an NFC Championship appearance. On paper, they're much better. But, they are going to a new quarterback. They got to kind of work him in. He's going to have some growing pains. Mm-hmm. Same draft class as Justin Fields. Not nearly as much experience that Fields got last year, but they're committed to Lance. They're confident, but I think if the Bears are going to steal one from a team they're supposed to lose, I think this is a chance. But I still think the Niners probably pull it out.
Yes, sir. And what can you see the score being?
If it's up to the Bears, I mean it's going to be low scoring. I mean they're going to try and run the ball, slow the game down, which actually plays into the Niners' hands because they also want to run the ball and keep the game slow and tight. They got a good defense. Bears hope to have a good defense. Low scoring, maybe 21, 13, something like that.
Yes, sir. Now, what do you expect out of the new look offensive line, and who do you expect to see on the offensive line week one?
They haven't really made an official announcement, but if you kind of listen to the press conferences from Ryan Poles and Coach Flus, it seems pretty set. If Lucas Patrick is healthy with that thumb injury, he'll be back at center. Mm-hmm. Braxton Jones, the rookie at left guard. Cody Whitehair, the vet at left guard. And then, right tackle Larry Borum seems to have that job locked up. And then right guard Tevin Jenkins, he has that in there now.
I was just about to say I didn't hear Tevin Jenkins' name just yet. Cause
I saved him for last, just for you.
I'm pretty sure he's going to start as well, too.
Yeah.
What about the receivers, though? Darnell Mooney, EQ St. Brown, Pringle, that's who we'll see the most?
Probably. Pringle's been battling a quad injury all offseason. From what I understand, he's close to being back. He's not all the way back at practice yet. But like we said, we got another week. So they hope to have him in there. Velus Jones Jr. also has got a little bit of an injury he's kind of been dealing with. So we'll see how those guys shape up because right now there's a few banged up receivers. And, of course, Harry is on IR. Tajay Sharp went to IR as well. So they may have to bring a couple of practice squad guys up just to have enough healthy bodies for the first week.
Gotcha. And obviously we'll see David Montgomery in the backfield splitting it with Herbert.
Nah, I mean, I think they'll share a little bit of the load. But this is Montgomery's team, man. I mean, he is the all-around back you want. He can run it, he can catch it, he can pass block. You got to do all three in the NFL, and he's clearly the best guy the Bears have. And he's a good fit for the offense. In the offseason, everyone thought he didn't have the speed for the outside zone scheme. He's got enough speed. He can do it. He's not the home run threat if he gets loose, but he's got some good shake. He's got some good power. He'll break those arm tackles. I think Montgomery's gonna have a big year.
Yes, sir. Over 1,000 yards?
Yeah, I think it's,
barring injury.
Especially with the new 17-game season, I think 1,000 yards, it's not what it used to be, but I think it's still a nice. People forget, 2 years ago, he was like fifth in the entire NFL for yards from scrimmage. Mm-hmm. He's a good all-around football player, and I think he'll get his chances this year to do it again.
Yes, sir. And then, obviously, you think we will see some development from Justin Fields as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, this last preseason against the Browns, man, he was, 3 touchdowns and a half. I know you got excited, though, right?
I definitely did. But I just thought it was like preseason. I was like,
it's preseason. Yeah.
And he was playing against a bunch of backups as well, too.
They had some starters in, some backups. I mean, they were sitting Garrett, they were sitting Clowney, so they weren't having their top guys. Mm-hmm. But, it was a lot of their top guys in the secondary. He was still doing his thing. I mean, if you watch the film, he was kind of doing what you want to see him do. He was orchestrating the offense. He was moving the safety with his eyes. He was kind of doing the stuff you want to see from a second-year quarterback. And this offense as a whole, with Luke Getsy, the play caller, it's just a different flow to it. Even in the preseason, it's noticeable. So I'm excited for week 1 to see how it all comes together.
Now let's talk about this defense. And before we talk about this defense, I might say, Bears fans, that guy Kyler Gordon looked at your boy's story and saw my message that I sent to him too. So I'm feeling like it might be on the verge of a breakthrough of getting a Bears player on the show. Maybe not. I'm just talking, being hopeful. But what do you think about this defense?
Yeah, I mean, the defense has some talent. I mean, much more talented than last year. The secondary was their big key. You mentioned Gordon. Also with Brisker, their top 2 draft picks. They're going to play a lot of reps. Brisker had the thumb injury. He's back at practice. They haven't said if he's going to be clubbed up or not, but he'll play. He's talked about being ready to go. So I'm excited to see what they do. It's a different scheme. It's not what they did the last few years, but there's some talent there. I think they'll surprise a few people.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, we will see Kyler Gordon making his debut at starter outside of your boy Jalen Johnson.
I think he's probably going to play nickel. I mean, the Bears liked him in nickel during the offseason. Like when I was at camp, he was playing outside, and then he would kick inside the nickel. I think they like his versatility. Mm-hmm. He has the skill set to kind of do both positions. So it's hard to say what they'll do week 1, but regardless, I mean, in today's NFL, the nickel's a starter. He plays so many reps, so he'll be out there a lot, playing a lot of football.
Yes, sir. Now, do you think we will see Duke Shelley or Vildor?
Shelley was cut.
Oh,
just
no.
The other day, yeah. We don't know, man. That's your guy? No.
Really? Yeah. I didn't.
Yeah, he was released when the Bears did their they got 6 guys off the wire. And one of the guys was a nickel-type player. Mm-hmm. And so Shelley was one of the guys that let go. And, I mean, it's going to be Vildor is probably a guy that stepped up. He had a really nice camp. I think he'll be the guy who probably starts outside. I don't think he has the twitch to play nickel. Mm-hmm. It seems like he has the size to be nickel, but he's a physical player. I think he fits better on the outside. I think the Bears want him there. Like when I was at camp, when it was like I said, it was Gordon starting on the outside. And then when he kicked in, it was Vildor that took those outside reps. So I think it's going to be Vildor. Also, look for Lamar Jackson. He had a nice
quarterback.
Nebraska corner a few years ago was an undrafted free agent of the Jets. Bears picked him up. He had a nice camp. He made the team, so he could get some reps outside too.
Yes, sir. Now, the biggest talk of the town, Roquan Smith, will be back. Will be playing. What do you expect to see out of this young man?
Huge year. If he's healthy, 150 tackles, a bunch of tackles for loss. He fits the prototypical mold of a modern linebacker. He can cover. They'll face a lot of passing offenses, obviously, and that's something he thrives at with the speed. So he'll get some picks. He'll get some balls deflected. I'm not sure how much they'll blitz him. Traditionally in this scheme, that weak side linebacker doesn't do a lot of blitzing. But in Roquan's career, he's shown that he's a good blitzer. So they may let him do some of that this year too. So huge year. I mean. Pro Bowl should be his first Pro Bowl. I would not be surprised if he makes another All-Pro team. He's that dude, and he's got the skill set to fit this scheme.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, obviously, we talked about the offense, the defense. Let's talk about the people that they picked up from the waiver wire.
I mean, the big name is Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle, offensive guard from the Raiders. Awful last year with the Vegas. I mean, he
a lot of penalties.
Penalties for one. A ton of penalties. His technique was awful. I mean, he was a left tackle at Alabama. He came to the Raiders, and they moved him to the right side. He played some right tackle, didn't work. Played some right guard, didn't work. His technique was all over the place. The first day of practice in Chicago, since they signed him, they had him at right tackle. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that's his long-term spot. I think he just maybe some guys can't go left to right. Going tackle to tackle. It's a different technique. It's like if your whole muscle memory is set to do certain things one way, now say, hey, now reverse it all. It's just hard. Some guys can't make that switch. Going tackle to guard sometimes on the same side's easier. I think left guard's his best spot. Mm-hmm. We'll see how it shakes out as the year goes on.
And obviously, a lot of Bears players fail to realize they have to pay the rest of his rookie salary, which isn't that bad because there's a high upside to it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you still get a young player.
Yep. I mean, the Raiders paid like almost 60% because the guarantees they're on the hook for. Mm-hmm. So I think it's like a $6 million commitment for him now, which it's a big hit, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big. He's a young player, really young. He's one of the youngest players when he was drafted. So if he can become something good, well worth the investment.
Where do you see him going? Practice squad?
He's on the main roster. Yeah, he when they pick him up from the waivers, you go straight to the main roster. Then most teams are set. The Bears had a lot of waiver wires because the Bears had a lot of rebuilding to do, so they wanted to get some guys in. I think he probably sticks in the main roster the whole season. He may not be active on game days because you have to. You only get dressed, I think, 47. Mm-hmm. So he may be one of the guys that doesn't dress, but athletic profile, he fits what the Bears want to do. They just got to find a home for him.
Yeah. And now, if he gels, can you see him possibly giving someone a run for their money on the offensive line? Or,
I mean, the Bears content with what they have now. I think if they're going to try him at right tackle, maybe Larry Borum gets bumped back to swing tackle. But right now, I can't see him having the ability to start.
Oh, no.
Not yet. I mean, he'll get there, I think. Again, you got to trust in the coaches. The coaching staff saw something in him. Like I said, when you watch his film in Vegas, a lot of waist bending, a lot of reaching. When you're at tackle, you have to let the pass rusher come to you. Mm-hmm. And this guy's a good athlete. He one of the top athletes coming out of college at his position. He has the athleticism to stay with edge rushers. He didn't trust it. And usually when you don't trust it, you don't trust your technique. That's why I thought I'd move to the left side. Might make more sense to get him back where he's comfortable. But he has to be broken down and built back up with this coaching staff, and it's going to take some time.
Yes, sir. Now, how many wins are you going to claim for the Bears this year?
And you always ask me, and what I always tell you,
I know,
6-ish. I mean, the Vegas over/under right now is 6. It just dropped. It was 6.5. Now it's 6. I think that's a fair number. Mm-hmm. It's you see some. You saw the discipline. They had very few penalties in the preseason. Which preseason, man, everyone's screwing up. Mm-hmm. Bears were pretty content. They were good. They were disciplined. They had very few penalties. So if that carries over, hard coach team, smart football, run the ball, play tough defense. It's old school mentality. But until you get Justin Fields where he needs to be, I think that's how the Bears are going to play, and they'll stay in a lot of games. I think. 6 wins is where I think they'll be, but I would not be shocked if they're close to 500.
As we get ready to close out this amazing episode, Lester, is there anything that you want to add on the Chicago Bears?
Nah, man, it's just, it's the season starting. I mean, this is a cool time for fans. Everyone's hopeful, and just don't get down on them. If they don't win right off the gate, it's a rebuild. It's a reset, however you want to call it. They have a lot of guys. There's only like 19 players left from Ryan Pace's regime. Mm-hmm. Ryan Poles came in and said, he looked at the rosters and got rid of most of those guys. He did it again in the offseason. He did it again for the wire. He wants this to be his team, and that's what it is now, and it's going to take some time, but they'll get there.
I just want to add in, too, Bears fans, like you said, do not get down on them because it's very possible that we may see the Bears start off 0-2. It's very possible because they got the Packers the next week.
Yeah.
So it's very possible we may see them start off at 0-2. Stick in there. Stick it out. As long as Justin Fields develop and we see the team developing, I'm all for that.
That's all I want to see. Justin Fields develop. The young players like Jones, like Jenkins, the young offensive linemen. I want to see Roquan do his thing. Of course, Brisker, Gordon, guys in the secondary. If the young guys show that, the future's bright, I think it says a lot for this team.
Well, you guys heard it here first on Bears Talk on Line for Line podcast. That was Lester. I'm your host, Devon. Thank you very much for tuning in.
You calling or you listening, tune in every week. Line for line. Oh yeah, I'm going lifeline.